Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 10 of Shot of Nostalgia right here at the Turnbuckle Tavern. Join us as we're doing that deep dive, and you see it right in the middle of the screen right there. It's Saturday night's main event, brother, and the Megapowers are boiling over. I'm good old Mike Belcaster, as always, and the host with the most.
Live from No Celsius, the Ace of Tavern, ACEFIELD Retro, and the drama, this pomp and circumstance, the pageantry that eventually will be WrestleMania 5, the Megapowers exploding. And man, this is becoming like daytime soap opera here with Macho Man and Hulk Hogan, with Elizabeth straight in the middle here. This is what we've been waiting for, man. One of the bigger events we talked about. We're going to be peppering in these main event episodes. And good thing we pivoted and did that, because the first main event, obviously Andre versus Hogan on TV, 35 million people watching it. And on top of it now, we're going to get the Megapowers exploding. And that with the halogen light bulbs, we got the title belt, that title shot in the face, heard around the world from Macho Man. What a crazy circumstance here.
Yeah, man. Oh my God, Megapowers. What an impact they had on WWF at the time. But to see them going at each other, two best friends, Hogan, it's like me and you going at each other, man. That ain't happening over no Elizabeth right here on Shot of Nostalgia, let me tell you that.
It's absolutely wild too, because then it is very appropriate that we're going through this. And of course, it's one of the big segments on Saturday night's main event and the main event catalog. But the other crazy thing is, this was in the news with the storytelling, long-term wise. Everyone's comparing the Bloodline storytelling, and I guess everyone either has the opinion that the Bloodline story has surpassed this long-term storytelling, or maybe the Megapowers still hold that, in high esteem for everybody, that they believe this is the best told story in WWE history. Who knows? But the thing is, as I spoke about a couple of weeks ago, I think they had the benefit of, they didn't have so many pay-per-views, so they really had to stretch it out. We went from WrestleMania to WrestleMania. If you tell the story, it even happened before WrestleMania 4, where they're building this story here, Macho turning face, winning the title, and then Hogan helping him celebrate, and then Elizabeth in the middle of it. This has been brewing for over 365 days, and I don't know, man. This holds up really, really well, I have to say.
Yeah, no, it super does, man. It's crazy that these two still can captivate you. I mean, after watching something that's almost close to being 40 years old, it's insane how well the storytelling is, how captivated you are with the characters. Macho Man, this larger than life, ooh yeah, and then Hogan, it's a tale of two guys, fighting over the prize, and it just speaks perfect wrestling language, man.
And as we're about 4 years into this Saturday night's main event journey, and we've been jumping through years, and we're going to be starting in 1989 this week and talking about 3 episodes in 1989. Of course, we are building towards WrestleMania 5 from Trump Plaza, where they're going to be having, as we mentioned before, the WWF Championship decided. Hulk Hogan trying to get the title back from a very heel Macho Man, Randy Savage. And we're going to talk about really the intentions and everything that went down, but it's hard not to sympathize or even feel for Macho Man during this circumstance, because as we rewatch this, it's hard not to see that Hogan was in the wrong here. And I wonder if it was intentional, but Hogan's actions definitely are borderline over the line as far as being with someone's girl. It felt very intentional, and I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess they wanted Hogan to be that, that white meat babyface, but he certainly wasn't that, nor was he ever in his career.
No, not at all. And it felt like I've watched this segment a few times with Hogan and Mach and Elizabeth, and it always felt like Hogan was just in the wrong here, man. Like, he just seemed slimy. Like, oh, brother, I'm going to go take care of Elizabeth, brother. It's just like, no, man. Like, why are you going to do that to Macho Man? But regardless, it's great shit. Very, very awesome. I'm loving it, man.
So, of course, we're going to get into that, and we'll talk in detail further our opinions on it. But today we're going to be reviewing 3 events. Saturday night's main event 19 on January 7th, 1989 from the SunDome in Tampa, Florida, headlined by Hulk Hogan versus Akeem. We're also going to get the main event number 2 from February 3rd, 1989 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, in the Bradley Center, headlined by the Megapowers, Hulk Hogan and Macho Man, teaming up for the last time versus the Twin Towers, Akeem and Big Boss Man. And, of course, we're going to do the finale here, Saturday night's main event number 20 on March 11th, 1989 from Hershey, Pennsylvania, in Hersheypark Arena, headlined by Hulk Hogan with Miss Elizabeth in his corner versus Bad News Brown. after everything that went down. Miss Elizabeth right in the middle. She's trying to stay neutral, but there's some hurt feelings here, and we are on the road to WrestleMania 5, and there's no, and we're going to talk about this in the newsletter, there's no better run right now for this heel Macho Man Randy Savage. He's captivating audiences, both young and old. He's really making a difference in the buy rates and also into the live gate for the live attendance.
Yeah, I mean, picture perfect opponent for a very, very babyface Hulk Hogan. Like, it's bread and butter. I'm super, super pumped, man.
And we talked about it when Macho first won the title at WrestleMania 4, the difference he made to wrestling as we know it today. An undersized guy by all accounts. Of course, he had the muscle and he carried himself larger than life, but he definitely wasn't the same type of wrestler we were used to seeing holding those championships from, follow the lineage. Of course, Hulk Hogan was champion for all those years since 1984 until in 1988 when he dropped the title. Finally, it took that long, but we also had, bigger champions, big muscular guys that were plotting. We didn't have the athletic, fast-paced wrestlers where Macho Man was that type of wrestler was usually relegated to the mid-card and having the Intercontinental Championship to vie for. Macho Man you can thank for having these workman champions like the Bret Harts, like the Shawn Michaels, like the Bryan Danielsons, eventually Chris Jericho, those guys down the line. It really started here with Macho Man Randy Savage.
Yeah, no, 100%. There was nobody ahead of the times like Macho Man. I mean, obviously you have your Steamboats and everybody, but they were on the come up. They were the smaller guys at the time, and being in the mid card, Macho Man, it's insane. Like to think about, especially because he's in this huge program now with Hogan and Elizabeth, and it just adds up so well. But I mean, I love Macho Man. You know me, so I'm super pumped to cover all of it, everything and anything madness, brother.
He's one of the interesting cases here where we talk about Macho Man Randy Savage. He literally feels larger than life. All my childhood, you look at him, you would think he was 10 feet tall, but he really wasn't. And he's a guy who inspired a generation of wrestlers to come after him to vie for the World Heavyweight Championship. And it took a while for them to resonate, but a guy like Macho Man shows that it's possible. Like, again, I'm mentioning guys like Bret Hart, who's on this roster, seeing it happening and understanding that the glass ceiling isn't just the Intercontinental Championship. You can go above and beyond that. And you can thank Macho for that.
Absolutely, man. He paved the way. Absolutely.
So each week we're going to go through the tapings and newsletters and give you all the context, keep you updated on all the happenings. We have the 3 cards to review from 1989. We both have watched them recently, and we're going to break them down. But of course, we have to go through that time capsule and meet with Dave Meltzer and have a very much younger Dave Meltzer guide us through the newsletter. Through the happy hour. So let's wet our whistles. Let's get the drinks flowing and go back to January of 1989.
Happy hour.
I miss it every week, especially when I miss it, man. I come back, I'm like, oh, Dusty's back, baby.
We have Dave Meltzer putting finger to, I guess, typewriter here when a young ACEFIELD Retro was 10 days old here. And we're going to start here on the January 16th, 1989 newsletter. And he's starting with some news about King Haku. And we've heard this story in lore. This has been something that's been very famous. I believe they talked about it on Dark Side of the Ring, and some guys reference this as when they talk about the toughest guy shoot-wise in professional wrestling history. Everyone talks about 1A, 1B would be Haku. And this is part of the legend of Haku here, and we're seeing the aftermath of it. And Meltzer writes, King Haku was found guilty on 2 of 3 charges concerning biting the nose off somebody in a bar fight a few months back. Meltzer continues, the sentences will occur this week, but no jail term is expected. Haku will still face civil penalties as well. So we always hear this story about Haku biting that guy's nose off in a fight. And there's been other gnarly stories. Of course, you hear about wrestlers in bar fights and trying to mangle guys. But do you remember hearing the story about Haku, just about the legend that is Ming/Haku?
Absolutely, man. And it's funny because, a shot of nostalgia is always so relevant with the times. Jericho was just talking about this when he was talking about confronting Brock Lesnar backstage after one of their matches. He's like, I got right up into his face. And he's like, you know what? I don't care if he's bigger than me. I'm going to bite his fucking nose off. He's like, Haku did it. I could do it too. And what a badass move to do to somebody in the middle. I mean, crazy shit, but you're in the middle of a fight, brawling it out. You bite somebody's nose off. It always reminds me of Dirty Work with Chris Farley. Like, the man in the land of the skunks, the man with one nose is the king.
It so really is crazy, dude. Like, this story you felt like would have to be exaggerated, but it seems like there are court records about this, about him doing this, and it adds to the legend. You didn't fuck with Haku, and that's, you know, one of the things that became known in the wrestling business, and he still has that reputation today as the toughest guy of all time. And there's other guys that have that same reputation, but I don't feel like anyone's ever approached Haku at that level.
No, and I mean, how after even hearing that, how would you slightly want to even mess with the man? I mean, I don't even want to be in the same building with them, even if it's a meet and greet. I'm going to pay the money for the meet and greet and stay home. That's how scary Haku is.
So we also have Randy Savage, and we mentioned before, he is the WWF champion. He's defending his championship on house shows in February, and as we mentioned, they're doing about 25 shows per week. They're lowering it down to about 18 to 20, which is still an insane amount of shows to be making the circuit, and they're saturating the markets and all that, but they're also using these house shows, Belcaster, as having the opportunity to test out new guys that are eventually trying out to the main event. And there's two guys in here, and of course, he has an extended feud with Bad News Brown. He's having these street fights all across the country against him. But the other name that popped up a little bit earlier than expected is the Ultimate Warrior, taking on Randy Savage. And of course, we know that he goes on only the next year to be the world champion, taking on Hogan at WrestleMania 6 in Toronto. WrestleMania 7, he has that epic match at Randy Savage. Probably Warrior's best match ever, that retirement match against Macho King. But it was interesting to me seeing 1989. He's still relatively new. He just won the Intercontinental title from Honky Tonk Man. He's defending it in these matches that are not, they leave a lot to be desired as far as work rate goes, but they're trying him out in the main event. And that's what these house shows have been doing. And they, at this point, they're being pretty well received. Yeah,
no, it's crazy. It's crazy to see how fast the Warrior skyrocketed. I mean, he comes in, super baby. They literally strap a rocket on him. I mean, IC title, going up against the main event. It's insane, man. But I 100% agree that his match with Macho Man is probably the best essence of the Warrior match.
Yeah, I honestly believe it's one of these best matches, and they captured some magic that night at WrestleMania 7. But I also am a sucker for WrestleMania 6. I think that was a crowning moment. I just always remember that. Watch it on Coliseum Video. That would be one of the tapes. I would go to Mr. Video in Oakdale, New York, and rent that. And that when you were sick, that's what you did. You watch. You know, I used to have all these WrestleMania tapes and go out there, and it would just be the best thing ever. But the other thing, I do like these house shows being used as a barometer of trying new guys out, and I think that doesn't happen as often. And throughout history of wrestling, they use it as a launch point to kind of assess. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. But we saw down the line, you had a whole bunch of conversation about the reason why at WrestleMania 8 they ran away from Hogan versus Ric Flair was because of the reception and the lack of chemistry on the house show circuit. So you got to wonder what could have been. And then, you know, you don't want to invest too much in the house show circuit. You don't want to use it as your be-all, end-all, Belcaster. But
no, of course,
it always is interesting to me.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of going to house shows, and they must have been way different, you know, then, especially not being on TV. But I mean, you usually get better matches out of the guys that want to give you the better matches. Obviously, you're going to have like your tag team phone it in matches, you know, like let's do a quick 10. You know, we'll just go back and forth, shit in the ring, hang out. But like you sometimes, once in a great while, you'd get like a Macho Man, like, you know, awesome main event, you know, brawl. And I've been to several hundreds of house shows, and they usually come up pretty good. I like when they use those to test the waters on people and try to make new talent out there.
You can also tell that they thought something of Bad News Brown, and of course he never really gets above the upper mid-card heel that was used as the big bad against guys like Hogan and Savage, but you could tell that they were trying him out, and of course he's getting some shine here against Randy Savage in the majority of these house shows, taking on him in a street fight for the title, of course always losing on these house shows, but still, he was the guy they had circled. And you look at a guy like Big Boss Man, who's being utilized right now in a feud with Hogan, but you could see they thought something of Bad News Brown, because on the other side of it, he's taking on Warrior, who we know what becomes him only a year later.
Yeah, insane, man.
So we also have them taping in Huntsville, Alabama, and also in Birmingham, Alabama, and there's an interview that was interesting enough with Hogan. He was asked about the problems with Savage and Liz, and Meltzer says he was there. He said there's no problem and that he loved Randy like a brother and Liz like a sister. He said, you know, also that these problems are overstated. It's definitely not as much as people are making into it. This is obviously prior to everything breaking down only a month later. But Meltzer says Savage also wrestles Akeem at a few house shows after Bossman makes the run-in with the nightstick. and Hogan makes the save with the title belt, leading to a dirty look from Savage. So they've been planting this stuff on not only WWF Primetime Wrestling, we've seen them planting seeds on Saturday Night's Main Event. It's just he's using it. It's the first thing he can find. And Savage looks at him holding the belt, and that just further breeds dissension between what was a very powerful tag team.
Yeah, what a cool like little sprinkling the seeds, we always talk about sprinkling the seeds here at the Tavern, but I think it's cool that they did that even at house shows. You building up that audience, especially back then. They didn't have TV every week, so you're starting to get a sense of, oh man, like they are breaking up, man. We don't know what's going to happen. What's next? And so these Saturday Night Main Events really showcase it. It's beautiful how they did it.
So we also had Mad Magazine here in the newsletter, and Meltzer says there was a funny feature on the WWF in the current edition from January. And Meltzer said, if you're at the newsstand, check it out. Make sure to see him. He said the guy comment was much more than he thinks. So interesting. I'm not exactly sure what he means that. I'd have to get my hands on this episode, or this edition, I should say, of this Mad Magazine. But I know you're a big fan of Mad Magazine. I know exactly that we talked about this during the 1998 episodes where it was a big piece of pop culture. But what about the Mad Magazines did you like?
Oh, it was goofy, man, and it was always like a good play on the times and what was the current events and stuff like that. But I was always a big fan of like Spy versus Spy, like the cheekiness between the white spy and the black spy. It was always something that caught me, and I used to pick it up all the time when I was a kid. You go to Walgreens, mom's walking around buying shit. You just veer off to the magazine aisle. You're rather looking at Mad, you're looking at pro wrestling magazines, or you're looking at the metal magazines or Rolling Stones or something like that. So it was always one of my favorites. This has got to be awesome to see. I want to see what Jesse the Body Ventura looks like in that Mad magazine art style, so definitely got to look that up after we're done recording here.
Yeah, I'm sure it exists like online somewhere, but Mad Magazine, people have to realize the cultural influence they used to have. I mean, similar to MTV, where it influenced people's interest and humor, and this was a big deal that WWF was getting recognition in. And the reason why I mentioned the fact in the newsletter that it's mentioned that is it just shows how popular wrestling is becoming. Not only is MTV, they're becoming involved with sporting athletes and having those guys infused with celebrities and musicians and all that. Just another addition of this really indoctrination of society to say wrestling is an accepted form of entertainment. And here it is again on Front Street. Vince McMahon and Jesse Ventura, they're not wrestlers. They're just announcers here, but they're just as popular as the active competitors are, which says a lot about the product.
100%, man.
So we also have the MSG show on. It was the day before New Year's Eve as we approach 1989. They said goodbye to 1988 in New York with 2 dates, and Meltzer said it was in front of 16,000 fans and approximately $200,000 gate here. And from top to bottom, he said it was the best MSG show. And he said Kurt Hennig was outstanding against Coco Beware, but he said it was also a one-person show. He also mentions that Savage beat Bad News Brown, looked fantastic. He did stuff outside the ring, lots of flying stuff and hard work outside the ring with some dives. So MSG was a market we mentioned last week with Bruno Sammartino. We talked about all the stuff going on with maybe a saturation of the market. Maybe they're not as hot as they used to be, selling it out over 200 times per year or whatever Bruno was saying in that interview with the Pittsburgh radio station. But this is a big deal. 16,000 fans to end the year in 1980 was a precursor to how hot they would become in 1989.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a few days after Christmas, the holidays are booming. You're 2 days before New Year's. Crazy, man. Awesome to see the attendance that high for wrestling in the 80s. It's insane.
And he finishes up this January 89 newsletter saying the next MSG show will be on January 23rd, which is Hogan versus Boss Man. But he also says the Brain Busters will be in action against the Rockers. And he said, get your VCR ready. So recognizing the team of Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard coming over to WWF, that is a must-see match. And this was a big deal here. Of course, their run in WWF was short-lived, but seeing Arn and Tully get their run in WWF, even for a short period of time, is surreal and awesome.
Yeah, especially going up against the Rockers, man. I mean, that's got to be a top-tier match. I wonder if it's up online anywhere or something like that. I'd love to see it.
Yeah, the Brainbusters definitely, I mean, there's a couple of matches they have with the Rockers. But that MSG show, I don't know if they're televised or not, but MSG, I feel like, and I'd have to go back and look at the dates, they still do that weekend after Christmas. I feel like they always run Madison Square Garden on the holiday tour on a house show or otherwise, just to kind of keep their tradition alive. I think people forget how important MSG was to WWF, and I think they've outgrown it. Of course, as they mentioned, 16,000. I'm not sure exactly what capacity is now with the renovations that were done, but MSG home of WrestleMania 1, 10, and 20. These are, the home of, Survivor Series and countless other shows, Raws and SmackDowns and all that stuff. I understand, like, that's to me, like, watching WrestleMania 30 not take place there was kind of broke your heart a little bit because it's tradition. I think people forget, like, of course, they're shooting for these football stadiums. They wanted to do the Superdome for WrestleMania 30. I understand that, but there's also a piece of the intimate environment of the things those walls and seats have seen. And
100%.
WrestleMania belongs at MSG.
Yeah, no, and they've veered away from a lot of the traditional venues for these bigger shows because they want those gigantic stadium shows, which is totally understandable. But I do miss, the occasional stop at a WrestleMania in Chicago here. It was always fun, but we were on that after Christmas run too. I seen Owen Hart's last match in Chicago was one of these after Christmas shows. It's like the 27th of December, and like that was the thing. We would always get the tickets for Christmas and our stockings, and we would head out to the shows afterwards. And it was like our little in between while we're off to school. Have a good time, go to a WWE house show, and enjoy yourself. I miss them, man.
Oh, hell yeah! And I think I'd be on board with signing a petition to bring back WrestleMania to MSG. I mean, I understand
100%.
like when they're shooting for, Cowboy Stadium and they're running, the Rams Stadium in LA, and you see these big venues and the spectacle that it is, especially watching Wembley Stadium get sold out by AEW, like they'd be damned if they're going to let all that money and financial potential go away by running MSG. But there's something about that environment. I think like it's historic. And I think it's one of the more historic venues that needs to be respected.
Hell yeah, man.
So we go to the March 1st, 1989 newsletter here, and Meltzer says the WWF has been on fire. There are several reasons for it. And he says the main one is that heel Savage has been selling out every arena where he appears, and Hogan has been doing likewise as a face. He continues, Titan has had phenomenal weeks since we left, probably among the biggest non-big show weeks in the history, which includes a record 189,000 house, in which had long been considered a dead St. Louis market, which broke the record for the city that a Flair versus Bruiser Brody match set back in 1982. And he said Titan's MSG show on a day drew a legit sellout of 19,000 fans. And then also, they also had at the Horizon too, 17,900 paid $223,000, which he says is the second largest indoor gate in the history, only behind Mania 2's live show, which had $100 tickets and drew 294,000, even with half a house. So they're on fire right now. They are cruising into WrestleMania 5. They're going to cruise into the 90s with the product as hot as ever. We're seeing the live gate kind of catch fire and the characters that they've invested in. That's the thing here. And I think we're seeing sort of mirroring what's been happening even today in 2023. We watch the attendance of the investment in these characters, the Roman Reigns, the LA Knights, these guys at the Cody Rhodes, the guys that fans are getting behind, and you're telling these meaningful stories, which eventually gets people in the doors. They want to see these characters, even the sub characters, as we're seeing with the Bloodline and Judgment Day. The underneath characters are still enough to get people in the door when, say, Roman Reigns can't be there, or you're having, you don't have the bigger star. You still have the underneath stars that are carrying the robe of these other guys.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, when I was a kid, I used to love going to shows. But like my favorites weren't, I mean, of course, I loved Austin and The Rock and everything, but I was going to these shows to see the New Age Outlaws, to be one of the guys that, you didn't know, like you got to love the under side of the storytelling. So I think it goes hand in hand. It's awesome to see that, man. I'm looking at these numbers here though. 18,000 people at the Rosemont Horizon back in 89. That's insane.
It just shows how hot the product is, and I think wrestling has become, as we mentioned, it is circling into being this very popular version of live entertainment that people are wanting to see. And of course, it's as hot when the characters are meaningful to you. And Macho Man being the champion as a heel is really resonating with the audience because it's the best of both worlds. Even though he is a heel and he's doing things that have tendencies to be booed, you're having the older fans that grew up watching him, respecting the work rate, understanding his history and the Poffo family. And then you got kids in the crowd that are watching this. They want Hogan so badly to beat him. Throw in Liz into this equation where she's so beloved by the fan base. It is an equation that equals financial success, and people wanted to see every piece of that story play out in front of their eyes.
Yeah, very well put too. I mean, it's a rivalry of ages. It works out so perfect.
So Meltzer says everything is set for Mania 5, with the big coup being that Piper will be the guest on a combined Brother Love segment and Piper's Pit. He says this will include a talk show with the host Morton Downey Jr. and So Piper, as we know, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago, he was retiring from wrestling and he went into acting. He just did the They Live movie, did really well in the United States and also overseas. His debut in the John Carpenter film, definitely check it out and watch it. But of course, he was always going to come back to wrestling. Wrestling was his first love. And especially we mentioned last week that Ted Turner purchased Jim Crockett Promotions and they were coming knocking, trying to get a big star. And we know Piper's only loyal to one color and it's green. So he's looking at it through the lens of, I'm going to try to maximize my deal and I have no loyalty elsewhere. So there's a negotiation for his services, especially with WrestleMania coming up. There's a show happening on the same day, a free show going on the same day for NWA. So they're like, all right, we want Piper in action for our show. And we have this negotiation going on. And Meltzer says the Piper negotiation is the most significant non-ring story of the week. He says the NWA agreed to Piper's $500,000 one-year wrestling deal, and the NWA folks even claim that he gave a verbal okay. So then we have Piper's agent, Dave Wolf. He's much tighter with Titan and Vince McMahon. Vince got on the phone, convinced him to work WrestleMania, and now he not only committed to one non-wrestling appearance at Titan, and apparently Jim Herd flew to New York on Monday to meet with Piper about signing a wrestling deal. And it is 98% certain he's doing the Mania appearance and he won't be appearing in NWA despite anything else going on. So they understand his importance. And of course, we saw him retire at WrestleMania 3, going into Hollywood. And as we know, outside of, Sting retiring in February of 2024, no retirement is certain. Every person has kind of said they're retiring and they come back. It's almost become comical. Terry Funk blazing the path for that. But Ric Flair, Shawn Michaels came back.
Yeah.
There's always the next match. But the thing with Piper, we saw that interview that they transcribed in the newsletter talking about wrestling. He never quite said that he was done completely. I think everyone assumed he was retired because he was going off to Hollywood with how successful he was, with how good looking he was, charismatic. They thought he would just be a shoe-in to make the rest of his life not taking bumps. But I think wrestling was his first mistress, and I think he fell in love with it and was never going away from it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you could tell, he was still passionate about it, even when he comes back. All the years later that he continues to wrestle. We got Piper up until at least 2014, right? So it's amazing, right, man.
So as far as WrestleMania 5 goes, and, correct me if I'm wrong, every single year we've been talking about these manias from WrestleMania 1 until now, this is WrestleMania 5. The real theme that's been strewn throughout this was that it's going to break financial records, and we're going to have the same stuff here. And Meltzer says this will be the biggest gross in the history of the business for a live show, as the Trump Plaza card is scaled at 1.8 million with the capacity of 20,000. He says sales have topped $1 million and the sellout is almost guaranteed. I don't think it is possible to touch the buy rate of WrestleMania 3 because of the oversaturation of wrestling on pay-per-view. He continues, however, the gross total should top any wrestling event simply because more homes have pay-per-view compared to only 2 years ago, and the higher prices are being charged. Even though the NWA will have a competing free show against them, I don't foresee it hurting too much because of how over the Hogan Savage Liz triangle is. He says also the realistic fact is that everyone has pay-per-view capabilities, and those interested in watching both can set up the VCR. And he says, as for the WWF fans who watch both the top matches, they're going to definitely prefer watching WrestleMania 5. And the other thing he mentioned, too, and we talked about the crowd at WrestleMania 4, was that the Trump Plaza is a scary setting. This is Meltzer's words, not mine, because of last year's library-like effect of having high rollers who weren't fans and made no noise. So there's a couple of things to unpack there, Belcaster, about, first of all, the financial boom that is pro wrestling, watching them as successful as they are, running a smaller business in Atlantic City, New Jersey with the Trump Plaza. Yeah. But they're still... The tickets are expensive. They're getting high rollers there. Celebrities that want to be in the building. The downside to it, similar to the Super Bowl, similar to the World Series, you have these tickets that celebrities and musicians and people that are in pop culture want. They're not fans, so the environment suffers.
Yeah, 100%. And it doesn't happen too much nowadays, but back then you could possibly see the worry for it. But I think the crossover for celebrity and wrestling is so hand in hand that I think no matter what, you'll get your Kid Rocks in the crowd and they're going to be cheering and going crazy. So I think they have a better chance now than they would 2 years prior to where they're struggling. So I think it's okay. I think the Trump building is going to be great. Everybody's going to have a good time. It's going to be a great pay-per-view. We're excited for WrestleMania. That's what I'm just telling you.
We'll get to see George Steinbrenner in the building for Saturday night's main event. So it is attracting celebrities and people that are in pop culture. It's something that is very important to remember, that wrestling is the hot button thing. It is something that people want to see, and it's a big piece of what the entertainment landscape was, and it's hot, and I think they're capitalizing on it right now. But we're continuing as well, talking about that NWA show that's going against it, and they're running the Superdome. And you would think like, oh, damn, they're running the Superdome. This is huge. They're going to be running a huge show, but they're a down product right now. And if you watch any of these shows, especially the one that runs against WrestleMania 5, they run the building, but they certainly don't have the bodies to fill the building, because Meltzer says that this event at the Superdome will be loaded with empty seats. It'll be too large for the pit-like heat of a basketball gym that NWA needs for the show, that has equally as many problems and more, because at least Trump Titan will do $1.8 million at the gate. He says at the same time, they should dance in the streets at the Superdome if they earn even $60,000. So goddamn, I know NWA is being purchased by Ted Turner. They're getting a facelift. They're putting new people that are in there. They're trying to get momentum, and they will. They'll certainly be there. It will take some time. Probably will take to around, obviously 95 before they're like a real competitor running Nitro and all that. But that's the first step with that, with Turner and TBS and the market and all that. WWF is hot, and equally as not hot, as lukewarm or ice cold it might be, is the NWA. And those fans that love that product are watching it die right in front of their eyes.
Yeah, and it's hard, man. I mean, of course you're going to have your diehards coming out to the show, but filling a big ass arena, especially competing against WWF, for WrestleMania, that's insane, and it was such a ballsy move by NWA. It's insane.
So there is a lot to be said about it, and we can look up the show and go over it, but we're not doing an NWA Shot Nostalgia show here, but it is. They are throwing a pretty good. They are doing a pretty good, card against it. But like you said, the counter programming, it just hurts them, and I think you easily could have did it that weekend. Similar, and we see this kind of happen over time, where WrestleMania, no one dares run a wrestling show at the same exact time against WrestleMania. They run it the same weekend. They piggyback on it. But I think at this point, there is this maybe ego that they feel like they could take away from this machine that continues to roll down the hill. But they, similar to what happens now at WrestleMania weekend, whether it be Ring of Honor, these independents in the local area, you have the Impact does the same thing. AEW tries to stay away from it, but Ring of Honor is there. They jump on the back of WWE and they ride that momentum, and rightfully so. And that's what NWA should have done. They probably should have ran the night before in the same damn city in Atlantic City, New Jersey. But they're like, nope, let's just run the same way and let's try to take the fans away. But it just didn't work.
Yeah, times were definitely different back then. But it would have. I just imagine if NWA would have ran that Saturday, right before Mania, probably in the same, at least a stone's throw distance, they probably would have came out 10 times better than they were running the Superdome.
So this was offered for free on TBS, the Clash of Champions, on March 27th, 1988, and it was Sting wrestling Ric Flair to a 45-minute draw. So as far as work rate goes, probably the much better match, probably the best match out of all the matches we're going to see on that weekend. But again, the investment, the emotional tie that Savage, Hogan, and Liz were having fans captivated, NWA just didn't have it. And I guess, again, similar to put it in perspective of today, that's why the Bloodline story resonated with people. If you go back to when it was at its peak with Sami Zayn and, he's an honorary Uce and all that, there was nothing hotter on this planet than what was going on with the Bloodline. People can make the argument that there's been peaks and valleys and all that with the story, and it's been consistent, but nothing was as hot as that. And I think going, mark that segment, the Elimination Chamber in Montreal, that was the moment for me that was as hot as it gets, and that's as emotional as you're ever going to be attached to a product as far as WWE goes.
100%, man.
So we also have just the conversation about media exposing wrestling, and you and I were talking about this off air, just talking in general about with WWE looking at the lens of changing the way this is entertainment, and of course changing the name to sports entertainment and moving away from kayfabe and having their personalities do radio interviews and TV shots and all these conversations that, without admitting that wrestling is scripted, they're also not denying it. And I think the old guard of wrestling, even like a guy like Bruno Sammartino with Vince Sr. would go to his grave admitting that wrestling was real, and he would lie to his grave just because it was a point of honor that they didn't want to expose the business.
Yeah.
So Meltzer is talking on the other side of it, saying everyone should learn the lesson of what happens when the media exposes wrestling. Nothing. He says the only people who care are the media. Those who do not like wrestling already dismisses as patently phony. Those who want it and love it generally know what it is and like it. I only heard a comment on last week's media stories at the WWF or NWA shows, and most of it was positive. So we talk about this all the time. There is a sect of fan base that they won't watch it because it's scripted. And maybe you turned off a section of fans that they thought wrestling was real. But I still stand by. If you're watching WrestleMania 3 and you believe that is an unscripted product, I mean, come on. Like,
yeah.
I understand that you want to protect the business, but when the way these guys are working, it is obvious to me that it became Disney on Ice. You know what I mean? This was just scripted and entertainment, and people were okay with it. In a lot of ways, it helped grow the business much larger than it ever would be if they expected it to be real.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if you're under, or if you're over the age of 8 and you still have a commitment of thinking wrestling is a legit, real sport, you might want to get checked out a little bit. But at the same time, it's a beautiful way of storytelling. And I think, as you just said, them kind of admitting that it's fake, it really opened up the doors for them to do a lot more with the product and bring more people into it as well. So I think it was a very safe business move to go on for the future. Obviously, look at wrestling today. It's insane how much it's grown since, these Saturday Night Main Event shows. It's insane, man.
So Meltzer says, in the wake of the real versus fake media issue, the WWF has pulled all media appearances from everyone in the company. Titan felt they could control that they would only bring up the New Jersey hearings if they were with media members. I was told that they will stay until Mania, when Titan hoped the story would die. Randy Savage did appear on Chet Kopik's Chicago talk show, which shows what Titan actually thinks of him as a journalist. Thinking he's a guy who has their hand in their pocket. He's just going to not ask hard-hitting questions. There's a lot to be said about 1988. Wrestling is in the news because of how popular it is. It goes hand in hand with the popularity. People are poking holes in it. You also point back to July 1988 where Bruiser Brody was stabbed. So that was in the news cycle here in Puerto Rico. And people, although it wasn't the internet and didn't go viral, it was definitely in the news where people were saying that even though he was stabbed and he was killed at the show, that was not part of the show. And then people started asking questions of, well, what was part of the show? What if that wasn't supposed to happen? Was the other stuff supposed? And it started pulling a thread where maybe it started to come unraveled. And there's two dividing camps. As you mentioned before, wrestling's at a point where it's growing because of the fact it's accepted entertainment. It allows TV stations to feel more comfortable because they can control what they're seeing on screen. Like if it's unscripted, UFC, I mean, for the longest time, and I think at this point, we're getting to a part where it's becoming more commonplace to be accepted, of course. But there's this definitely, there's an angle that people have that they feel that if wrestling was scripted, it's safer. You know what I mean? Because they can, first of all, they can guarantee you're going to get 3 hours on pay-per-view. You can also guarantee that you're going to have what the network appears. Like NBC doesn't want blood. They can control that. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like they can control exactly what's going to be on their screen. And that's more comfortable for these TV executives to sit in a chair because you're making the money hand over fist.
Absolutely. It's just like cartoons versus real, show business. You could get away with anything on a South Park, Family Guy, blah, blah, blah. The list goes on and on. But you can't, there's limitations to real life, So I think that's kind of the same aspect. You got your limitations with real sports, but it's pro wrestling. You could do whatever you want. Vince McMahon could blow himself up in a limo and they host a farewell show to him. It's crazy. But fun fact about Chet Kopik and the Chicago talk show, the first show I worked as an independent, Chet Kopik was there, and he was donned in Macho Man's WrestleMania 3 robe, and he let me wear it. It was super cool. So I have a picture of good old Mike Belcaster rocking that Macho Man WrestleMania 3 robe, and it is heavy as shit. Wow. Beautiful. Absolutely cool. It was one of the greatest moments of my fandom.
That is fantastic. I feel like we should put that in the audio picture. I should crop it, just put it on the Shot Nostalgia backdrop.
Oh, hell yeah. I'll get you a good shot of it.
I would love it. And I don't know. I just think there's there's still schools of thought that believe wrestling. And I'm sure there's old school minds that believe wrestling should have never been exposed. And people pinpoint the curtain call as a moment that exposed the business, and riding in the car where Jim Duggan and Iron Sheik were riding in the car together. Again, they got arrested for smoking weed. And I was like, wait, that's a heel, not the face. And I'm sure people had their thoughts about what was scripted and what was not. But, I mean, you go back to the NWA and the magic that was pulled in front of that with, get Dusty's leg being broken by the Four Horsemen and people believing that was real, and him in Atlanta walking around in the grocery store with the cast on his leg. Like, there's something magical about it. But the comparison I was using, and I think I used it last season, a shot of nostalgia, that just because you know that Santa Claus is not real does not ruin Christmas. In a lot of ways, it becomes more special. And I think the magic of Christmas exists still, even without the knowledge. Even as a kid, you find out Santa's not real. I think almost seeing how things are made behind the scenes, personally for me, wrestling has become more like, I would not love wrestling as much if it was not scripted in a lot of ways. I like what goes in to make the stories.
Yeah, 100%. And it's a more comfortable environment to be in, even as a fan or as a backstage hand or, whatever the case may be. It makes it feel a little bit more comfortable. You don't want to be watching rugged dudes legit breaking the shit out of the guy's legs and arms. It's like it's more it's a safe form of entertainment to be like, yeah, I'm gonna go watch some guys beat each other up for a while and enjoy my night and not have to worry. And I think that's
just called UFC. So just go check it out.
Yeah, exactly.
Go,
and then
go to
even
Abu Dhabi, go watch your UFC. Like, that's what it is. And there's certainly a market for it. That's that's part of it. There's the thirst for violence in America and also overseas. They want to see things like the UFC, but to me, I'll stick with the WWF or WWE. You're getting 3 hours of, even if they say they're going 8 to 11, you're going 8 to 11. There's no match that's going to end earlier, and you're going to go off the air unhappy. So you're going to get your money's worth on paper. You can't say the same about UFC.
100%, man.
But, we're an echo chamber here about wrestling. Obviously, we're here talking about it. But let's get our fix. Let's head over to the Saturday Night's Main Event catalog and start with number 19 from Tampa, Florida in the SunDome. Let's get our fix.
Get your fix.
All right, we are in Tampa, Florida, the SunDome. This was taped a month before this aired. So it was taped on December 7th, 1988. Winds up airing on January 7th, 1989. Our champions are as followed. The WWF champion is still Randy Savage. He won it back at WrestleMania 4. Our IC champion is Ultimate Warrior. He won it back in August of 1988. Our tag champs, they also won it back at WrestleMania 4. 3/27, 1988. And also we have the women's champion, Rocket Robin. She's our women's champion still. We don't see much of her on TV. That's Sam Houston's sister. So she has a short run here, and she's the champ. 10/7, 1988, defeating Sensational Sherry, ending her 500-day reign.
Woo!
So here we are, Tampa, Florida. We're on that road to WrestleMania 5. We got our opening segment here. A couple of cool stuff. We got Ultimate Warrior. We got Honky Tonk Man, Brutus Beefcake setting the stage. Of course, we get Akeem and Hogan rounding us off here, and Hogan questioning Akeem and his loyalty to Africa and why he's there. And he says doesn't know where he came from. And Akeem is the African dream and one-man gang. We'll definitely touch upon him. He's heavily featured over these next 3 episodes. But are you an Akeem guy or are you a one-man gang guy?
Oh, it's a hard choice. I do enjoy the over the top Akeem a little bit more. It's just more of a character. He's bright, he's colorful. You really, really dig the vibe, man. As opposed to one man gang, kind of like that gritty, grungy version of Akeem, man. But I'm an Akeem guy.
It's always interesting when you go back, and of course the gimmick probably could not be done today, of course, but you add the combination of Slick and Akeem together with the charisma that gets put in there, and you would look at a guy like One Man Gang. He had like the biker gimmick across different promotions. He comes into WWF as a pretty well-established guy, and the Machine takes him, spits him out, and then designs him in a new way. And he kind of took it and rolled with it. I mean, with the dancing and stuff, like he really leaned into it, had the mindset that is similar to Dusty with the polka dots, just leaned into it, hope for the best. And I think it resonates because you kind of believe that he's really into this character. And like he definitely did not mail it in. He definitely tried. And that's what makes it interesting. We got the great Hasbro figure for him. People think it's the Conrad Thompson one, but I personally I think I enjoy Akeem too. I think this run with the Twin Towers is a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, he's got a good vibe, man, and like you said, he's the bright colors and everything. It really stands out, so it really sells the character. And Slick does such a damn good job at being the Prince Nana of the 80s. So I'm here for it.
So we head into our opening match here. It's Brutus Beefcake taking on Ron Bass in a hair versus hair match. And of course, Brutus the Barber Beefcake, he's a barber here. And of course, this will set the stage for him to get the win. Ron Bass on our TV here. The dude's wearing spurs on his boots, and he has some motivations. It's Brett and Bart, which sounds like an 80s tag team. But he also has a whip named Miss Betsy. And this feud started back in the summer of '88, and this is their blow off here. They're using this as a payoff. This is not big enough to be paid off at Manias, thankfully. So they're having this match here in a hair versus hair match, as we talked about throughout different eras of Shot Nostalgia and different seasons. During Smoky Mountain Wrestling, a hair versus hair was enough to get people in the door to at least want to buy tickets and see something happen. So we're going to see someone getting a haircut, and this is a big deal. Match goes pretty long. Goes about 7 minutes and 40 seconds. It is exactly what you expect it to look like. Two guys that have limited work rate. But we see Beefcake ducking a clothesline, and he puts Bass in the sleeper hold to put him out. 7 minutes and 40 seconds, as I mentioned. And Bass is left with Boris Zukov to look after his hair trimmings. And that's it, man. So Ron Bass takes a loss here. Your thoughts on this opening match?
Yeah, I've never been a a big Beefcake fan, so it was, as the sleeper hold ended the match, it also was a sleeper of a match. So it wasn't bad. It was pretty good. I give more credit for Ron Bass, man. I wasn't expecting as much out of him, and he showed up and held down. It was good back and forth, man.
So the core of this story was that Beefcake had a forfeited Intercontinental Championship match against the Honky Tonk Man at SummerSlam due to injury. Because he got hurt from Ron Bass. So I guess that's the story that they're telling here. And of course, the whip plays a huge part. Miss Betsy, they really put that over throughout this match. Ron Bass is that old school mentality. And it feels like, I don't know, probably not intentional and maybe subconscious on Vince's end when the creative here, that he wants to kill gimmicks and old school wrestling like this with sports entertainment. So of course, Ron Bass was never going to beat his Brutus the Beefcake character, which screams WWF, while Ron Bass screams the era of wrestling that is something he's trying to erase. I don't know if I'm thinking too much into it.
I love it, though. It's a typical Vince, but yeah.
So we have an interview, and Gene Okerlund is telling Hogan he looks to be outmanned tonight. And as he says that Randy Savage enters the screen, and he tells Hulk to keep an eye on things as well. So there's tension here already. Like, even though there is, it's gonna be a bit here. But you could tell that there's an underlying tension with Hogan and Savage, despite them putting their different side. They're intense personalities, but I think if you're watching at the time, you'd expect that eventually Hogan's going to want that title. And maybe some people thought Hogan was going to turn heel.
Yeah, it's crazy. You feel the paranoia from Randy. Like, you totally feel it. Like, you like, I want you to keep an eye on things, Hulkster. Like, it's cool. So you get that vibe from him, and he's selling the shit out of it. So very, very nice little interview segment.
So we lead right into this match. It's Hulk Hogan with Miss Elizabeth in his corner, taking on Akeem with Slick. And the main story of this match really is, of course, Hogan having a Liz in his corner. But Savage, when he said to Gene and Hogan, I'm going to keep an eye on things, he meant that him and Gene Okerlund were going to sit in the back in the locker room and watch the match on a monitor. So they keep going back to that. And he's intently watching the screen. And you would think he's watching to keep Hogan safe, but now as things break down, he's watching to make sure that Hogan's appropriate with Liz. And this resonates again. This throws into the consideration of how wrong is Macho Man Randy Savage throughout this feud. And of course, he reacts poorly, and he's the one that makes the move and eventually attacks Hogan. But I feel like Hogan is baiting him here, and I don't know. Yeah. This feels to me like it can be interpreted over time. It's not black and white like people want to make it out to be.
No, you feel Hogan's got like this sleaziness about him during the storyline, which in retrospect it really helped pay that heel turn when he does the NWO turn, because you knew there was that slime ball side of him stemming all the way back here. So very, very crazy. But Hogan just seemed very, very. Like icky. I don't know. It just felt off and felt wrong.
So of course we get Boss Man coming out here as well, and he gets involved, and we get DQs and stuff like that. But some of the spots here is, Boss Man gets on an apron and he gets knocked off. Hogan punches Akeem down on the mat. Boss Man gets back up to distract the ref. So he's all over the place. You'd think that, first of all, Macho is watching on the monitor. He should come out and help his friend, right? Because, dude, this is why you're watching on the monitor. And Hogan whips Akeem into the corner. Hogan charges at him, Akeem pulls the ref in the way, and immediately Bossman gets back on top of the ring. He starts beating Hogan with the nightstick, and then Savage and Okerlund are watching, and Savage says that Hogan will be okay. So Gene's like, dude, this is why you need to get involved. And Savage is like, no, I think he's got it. And the Twin Towers getting in the ring. They give 2 splashes to Hogan, and Liz runs to the back like, Randy, I need you. You need to come out here and check this out. The ref wakes up. Akeem goes for the 747 splash. Hogan moves out of the way. I thought Hogan was going to lose his match. And I was like, oh, man, I don't remember Akeem ever beating him, especially with the Twin Towers and the ref's distraction. So in the back, Elizabeth finds Savage, and Randy insists that, no, Hogan's good, man. No worries. Hogan hulks up. He fires back on Akeem. He nails both Slick and Bossman. He hits the big boot, sets the slam, then he goes for the leg drop. He moves, and Bossman hits him with the nightstick, and then we get the DQ. So a lot of stuff going on here, and we get the Twin Towers continuing the destruction of Hulkamania. They beat him up after the match. Savage is still not out there, despite everybody else saying, like, the crowd wants Randy to come out and help him. And then we see the Twin Towers target Elizabeth. And then that's when we see Randy come out here, because Randy comes out with a steel chair, and it wasn't until Liz got involved that he even cared. So it begs the question, does he even care about Hogan? But you can make the argument, Hogan had it under control. He eventually did hit the big boot, hit the leg drop, and if it wasn't for Bossman hitting him with the nightstick, he would have won the match. So you can make both arguments here. Obviously, Randy, we know his intentions. He is supposed to be the bad guy here. But if you want to really write a thesis paper on it and do a psych study on it, it can be interpreted, again, not black and white. And I would make the argument from 1986 until 1992, Hogan has tendencies of being a goddamn heel.
Yeah, no, 100%, man. You feel it more and more as the years go by. But this was, typical Hogan sitting there going, brother, my ribs. And Macho Man's just like, oh, man, he's good. Like, don't worry about it, brother. Like, it's very, very great storytelling for the times, and I love it.
Well, the other thing is, too, so now that Liz, Hogan, and Macho are all out there, Liz goes over to help Hogan, and Macho's like, dude, I'm out here, and now he's getting pissed. Hogan's trying to move in, and, like, then he does the rib thing, as you're referencing before, and Savage pulls Liz aside, confronts her about the issue, and she decided, I'm going to help Hogan to the back.
Yeah.
And Randy's left. This is when he made his decision. You can tell this is like, I'm done. So, again, it's all through perspective of how you want to angle it. And you can also say Hogan was hurt. The Twin Towers, 2 of the biggest guys on the roster, were attacking him. So, of course, his ribs would hurt. But he waited until Liz was distracted by Randy to pretend he was hurt. I don't know. I mean, you can make the argument. It can go both ways. Randy did not react accordingly, but you can't help but feel like he was baited on by Hogan. I don't know. We have this conspiracy theory going on right now, I guess.
Listen, I'm sympathetic to the Macho Man side of things. Hogan's definitely in there being this greaseball, trying to steal his lady away. And he's picking his spots here. Like, you could see it. Like, as you said, he's waiting for Randy to get out there and be like, oh, Elizabeth, brother, I need Macho Man just like, what are you doing, man? Like, so it's good. Just like you growing up, going to grammar school, you make your best friend in kindergarten, you guys get to high school, and there's that chick, and, you guys are fighting over her, and it's that kind of story. Good baiting, man.
Well, if you follow, I mean, and who knows if they had this in mind, maybe they did, but before, I mean, we're not too far removed from when Savage was a really, evil heel with how he treated, we talked about it on this show, about how he was treating Liz and the misogyny that goes into his character, and, like, he was pushing her down, and, like, all that shit that went into the character. Maybe there's a piece here that it is Elizabeth standing up for herself, even though they were pretty harmonious before this. But, like, he turned face, he sounded like he turned in after he lost the IC title and then decided to take his eye off of it and want to protect Ricky Steamboat, and he turned face and all that stuff with Hogan. Seemed like he turned over a new leaf, but maybe the long-term storytelling is that this is her always wanting her way out, and Hogan was this apple of her eyes sort of thing. I don't know, but this is a story that stretches way past just the 365 days that they've that Macho's been champion.
100%, man. And it's crazy that you think, like, Hogan's just, I don't know, he just feels so manipulative.
It's disingenuous. It really is.
Yeah, 100%.
Maybe it's just the bad acting. That's why he didn't make it in Hollywood. But, like, and I think that's also what adds to the character, because it feels like he's poorly acting on the screen, which feels like the character Hulk Hogan is actually trying to act and get Macho jealous on purpose to ignite a feud for this championship belt. Maybe that's overthinking it, but you can make the argument throughout time, even in 1992, when he pulls Sid off of in the Rumble. And I mean, this dude was cheating. He was raking eyes. He was using chairs.
Backs, he was
not
dirty player,
abiding
man.
by the babyface rules. So you can make the argument he's always been a goddamn heel.
Yeah, I like it. I like where you're going with it.
So we lead into the Ultimate Warrior. He took on the Honky Tonk Man for the IC Championship, and this is the rematch from SummerSlam where Warrior surprised Honky Tonk Man and beat him in 30 seconds for the championship. So Honky does get a little bit more here. This is not the 30-second squash match that happened at SummerSlam, but we get a Warrior definitive win, of course. He does his stuff. The clothesline, the running shoulder is the one that finishes him off. There is some stuff that goes on where there's spots, and it's a short match, 5 minutes and 7 seconds, where Jimmy Hart does get involved, where you think that maybe there's a shot that Honky Tonk Man's going to get the win, but we do have Warrior overcoming it. And really, this is the last title shot for the Intercontinental Championship that Honky Tonk Man will ever receive. So this is not this this is not this back and forth match you would probably expect, especially with how Honky Tonk Man is remembered.
Yeah.
He is essentially, if you look at it, a glorified enhancement talent, in my opinion. Like if you
100%.
If you watch him here, the IC title kind of went on him to die, and having Warrior carry that title was a launch point to the main event. If you look at most IC champions throughout this time period, whether it be Bret Hart, Kurt Hennig, Warrior, Shawn
Savage,
Michaels, eventually Savage, they use it as a launch point to a main event scene. Not so much for Honky Tonk Man. He was the longest reigning champion at the time. It was like they just forgot about the title, and it never was a launch point for him.
And for the better. We'll
I would say so, yes, exactly. Yeah. So in the back, we get the Twin Towers, and they're stirring the pot, man. They're trying to talk about the Megapowers, and they said they're crumbling right before our eyes, and it's because of what we did here. This is a good segment here, especially when you get the perspective of the heel team that was involved. So
yeah,
I really much enjoyed the Akeem and Boss Man getting involved in this and really stirring the pot.
Yeah, and Boss Man does not get enough credit for being a character. Like he gets a lot of credit for being the guy in the ring, but I think outside of the ring, he's that much better, man. I love it, especially going back here. I mean, obviously in the future in the Attitude Era with Al Snow feud, like he's great there. But this is some quality backstage segments with fucking Big Boss Man, and I really enjoyed it.
So we get some stuff here with Terry Taylor, the Red Rooster. So Jesse Ventura is talking to Bobby Heenan, and he said they really go in on Terry Taylor. And if you look at Terry Taylor's history throughout wrestling going into his run in WWF, they gave him the Red Rooster gimmick. But they use this promo, and Ventura, I know it's the heel Ventura talking about things, but there's some truth here, and he was fed these lines. And he says, I commend you for taking someone as ordinary and lame as Terry Taylor and turning him into an average and subpar wrestler. He's got an undefeated record, and Taylor looks at him like, dude, that's not cool. And he doesn't let him bother him. But, at this point, we know Terry Taylor is a great wrestler. He could have been someone that we just watch what they do with guys like Harley Race. We watch what they do with these other wrestlers that come in, even like a Jim Duggan. They become gimmicks. And
yeah,
Red Rooster, unfortunately, was not a gimmick that was going to stick. He tried his best with it. I mean, it's a horrifying gimmick. You think about making it to Titan Sports. He probably dreamed his whole life being on the stage, and a guy's working his ass off, all the bumps in the ring, all those rolls, and days sweeping the gym after everyone leaves, and he gets this Red Rooster gimmick. I just can't imagine, I don't know. I know you have to make the best of things, but this has to be horrid when he looks in the mirror and says, this is what I'm doing.
They should have just both been standing there with shovels. So when Terry Taylor was just laying on the ground getting dirt poured on him. This was such a funny segment. It was hilarious. I mean, Bobby the Brain Heenan, you know what Terry Taylor's got more than anybody else? He's got me. Like that's it. That's all you're giving the guy. Like it was good. But Jesse burying Terry Taylor was a good comedic watch. Anybody watching it should go. Anybody following along, go watch it for a nice laugh.
I mean, his run through Mid-South, his run through Jim Crockett Promotions, World Class Championship Wrestling, like he was a guy that was known for his work rate. And it just feels like it is a rib on the other company. Like, and again, I talked about it before with a guy like Ron Bass, the old school mentality of wrestling. Yeah, it almost like they were making an example of Terry Taylor. And I know that Bruce Pritchard has famously talked about this in the Box of Gimmicks episode where they reference this gimmick, and Bruce Pritchard makes the argument when you think about Terry Taylor, most people remember the Red Rooster because it was something that stands out, but not in a good way, in my opinion.
No. Not at all.
So Bobby Heenan is mic'd up for this match, and at this point, you have to kind of make an imagine they're going to advance some storytelling here, and he's taking on Tito Santana, and Tito Santana was ironically wearing his Strike Force tights, even though the tag team, is gone, right? I mean, they're no longer teaming at all. He's still rocking the Strike Force tights, and I just thought this was interesting. But Martello returned from an injury at the Rumble after the show airs, but they're already doing the different things. I think we're going to get the model, and Tito Santana's doing his own thing. So we're never going to get Strike Force back. I just noticed he's wearing the gear. Like, it just seems bizarre. Like, you have a guy that is clearly going to get a singles push, but you don't even make some new gear up for him. Maybe the onus is on Tito to do this, but I don't know. Again,
he left the wrong. He grabbed the wrong gimmick bag on the way out. So
the other thing that's of note, then this match was pretty damn good as far as work rate goes, and I'm not used to seeing matches like this that have any sort of cohesion, and especially on Saturday Night's Main Event, with George Steinbrenner in the front row, and Heenan is mic'd up as I mentioned. He stops by to ask what he should do with anyone that's incompetent, right now the Red Rooster's being, and he says you should fire him, and we get Rooster hitting a jawbreaker and he gets some offense in, but we eventually see Tito getting the win here after some stuff going on. So the ending, Tito with the hot shot, he goes for the cock of the walk, which is the sharpshooter. Santana punches him away, clotheslines him to the floor. Heenan throws him back in the ring, and the Rooster says, "What are you doing?" And he gets rolled up from behind, and that's it. So Heenan gets in the ring, tells Rooster that nobody will make a fool of him. He beats up Terry Taylor all over the ring, and Heenan gets cornered and then beaten up by Terry Taylor, and then they're going to set up this match at WrestleMania. I got to say, man, this match was a lot of fun. Tito Santana, underrated work rate. And again, under the gimmick, under the veneer of this Red Rooster shitty gimmick is Terry Taylor, a guy who's an all-world talent in the ring. So this match ripped. It was 7 minutes and 27 seconds of just nonstop action.
Yeah, no, it's awesome to see that kind of work rate on a Saturday Night's Main Event. I enjoyed it, and probably one of the better outings I've seen from Red Rooster, on WWE TV at least. It was great, man.
Absolutely, and I think that he was a talent that was ahead of his time, and I think in a time like today, he'd be much more appreciated if he was given the time in the ring as a technician. I mean, akin to a guy like Bryan Danielson, where he could have just been this very straight-laced wrestler that could just go out there and do his thing. But of course, this was not the time and place. 1988, 1989 was not a place where you would be. Yeah, you would not be able to survive on just wrestling technique. Of course, you had to have some gimmick, something to make you stand out. And sometimes you're a Rooster, and that kind of stinks. But we're going to see Rooster take on Heenan at WrestleMania. So that's his WrestleMania moment here, where he's going to get a chance to take on Heenan in a memorable moment and get his comeuppance. But just the walk itself was, not great. But we lead into our main event here. Mr. Perfect taking on Coco Beware. And this is a late night squash match because they expect everyone sleeping. This is that spot where they expect no one to be watching. They kind of cram this up in the beginning of the show. And Perfect is just dominating him. It took 3 minutes, but he eventually sets up a corner charge and a perfect plex for the finish. This was a fast-paced squash match. Of course, Coco Beware has kind of fit into this role pretty well at this point. Perfect plex to end the match, and that's it. And Mr. Perfect is starting to get over on the house shows. He's starting to show what he can do. I still look at Kurt Hennig as a missed opportunity to be the WWF champion. I know there was rumor that he was supposed to be, sometime in 92, 91. He was a guy that they looked at as a top heel. Still believe he could have been a world champion, but I think his time at the top of the card, despite not winning titles similar to Roddy Piper, is still one of the best runs that we've had in the World Wrestling Federation.
Absolutely. I mean, he doesn't, obviously he gets the credit, but he does not get enough credit for how good he was in the ring. I think Mr. Perfect was possibly one of the top 10s of all time, easily. A guy is so good in and out. And I mean, even going into the late 2004 run that he was doing, he was on top of the world, man. It's a shame he didn't get a title picture because he's just so goddamn good naturally. So,
we end the show with looks like the Megapowers have made up just to end the show, and the air is cleared for now, but you can still see this underlying tension, and we go off the air. So we lead into the main event number 2, which is a month later. So less than a month, February 3rd, 1989, the main event number 2 from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the Bradley Center. Woo. All of our champions are the same, and we only have 2 matches on this card, and they pack this hour with a lot of stuff on here, and we get Vince McMahon and Jesse Ventura leading us in. And we get this match that was set up on Saturday Night's Main Event that we just reviewed here. We have the Megapowers Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage with Liz in their corner, taking on the Twin Towers, Akeem and the Big Boss Man with Slick. It's not often we get a match that is double digits. No, we're sitting here reviewing a match right now in an hour-long show that is 22 minutes long. And this is the fuse that will be lit to eventually get to WrestleMania 5. This is the match that sets it up, and the frustration boils over for sure. And all of this started on a Brother Love segment after SummerSlam when Boss Man and Slick first attacked Hogan. We got One Man Gang transforming into the African Dream Akeem, and he joined up with Boss Man in the destruction of Hogan. And now, since obviously Savage is his friend, he became involved regardless of the problems that stem from Hogan and Liz and their relationship. And going back to what we just talked about in the last show, we have Savage feeling really like he's the third wheel with Liz and Hogan, and Liz helping Hogan to the back. And then at this point, we know Savage is the champ. He should be at the top of the world. He should feel like he's at the apex of his career. But at this point, he's worried about the love of his life. He's wondering about his best friend, and the paranoia, as you mentioned before, is being set in. And we are sitting here breaking it all down. And at this point, there's egomaniacs like Hulk Hogan that as he eventually references him in the interviews, and 8 days later at the Rumble, Savage gets eliminated by accident by Hogan, which sets the stage. And goddamn, like, this sets the stage for the Saturday Night's main event here, or the main event, I should say, where Hulk Hogan and Savage showing patience, and they were patching things up later in the Rumble. The Twin Towers get involved. So, man, this sets the stage here. If you're going in February 3rd, you go to sleep February 2nd, you wake up in the morning, you have to know that something's going to boil over you. You had to know, and it certainly did.
Yeah, I mean, unless you're one of those little kids that's like, man, everything's going to be great. Hogan and Macho Man are going to be best friends going in the. You are dead wrong. That kid's crying in his pillow after this because this is the blow. This is a huge blow up in a feud, and I don't think it's ever been done as well, and I don't think it's ever been done before this. Like, it was so much on the line here, a lot of tension, beautifully done. I mean, goddamn, this was perfect network television for pro wrestling.
So prior to the match taking hold here, they show a music video that you can it's 1989, but it could be viewed as cheesy, which is called The History of the Megapowers, and to the song You're a Friend of Mine by Jackson Brown. This is tough. I mean, Jesse does call the video evidence of the cover-up of the friction of the Megapowers, and really, Hogan is on the other end of the back of this video, talking about how the love of the Megapowers will demolish the Twin Towers. And that's really, so it sets the stage. They try to kind of hook, line, and sinker, make us believe that they're going to get through this. And Savage, in the beginning, is admirable. He wants to start against Boss Man, and Boss Man says, no, dude, I want Hogan. And this is another thing that probably looks at Savage like, I'm the champion, and I'm being looked at as secondary. So all over the place, there's the paranoia, there's the insecurity, and all that's going to boil over here. But your thoughts on this match, dude? I thought this was really well done. Like you said, this was a sports entertainment level match. It
is one of those things that it has no damn right to be as good as it was. Like, you're like Akeem Big Boss Man held down with Macho Man. Like, if you were born after 2004 and you're reading this, you're like, this has got to be awful. But when you go back and watch it, you're like, holy shit, it's so good. I thought this was perfectly well done, and I don't know if it's the absolute first time that we're seeing the dramatics at this level, but it feels like this is an introductory of this, making wrestling fit in with the very high dramatic soap opera antics afterwards, because the aftermath of this is just heartbreaking. If you're a Macho Man guy, or if you're a Hogan guy like this, you don't want to see any of this. Like, you are crumbling as much as the Megapowers are. Like, you're like, no, not my people, man. So it is definitely a heart-wrenching fallout between the two, and the match itself was fan-fucking-tastic. So a lot of drama going back and forth in there too. Like, it's just beautifully done, absolutely beautifully done.
And of course, tied into all this is the heels are cheating too, and the referee doesn't get his eyes on it, clicks in the corner, and really the apex of the match happens here, where we get Akeem tagging Bossman again, and then the heels are some miscommunication. It feels like the faces are getting into their own here. A hot tag to Savage, hits the hot shot to Akeem. Savage comes off the top rope for a flying crossbody for a quick 2 count. Bossman makes the save, And then Savage comes off the top rope and Slick nails him in the back with the nightstick. Of course, the ref didn't see it. And the Twin Towers are trading in tags. They're working on Savage's neck for a while. Akeem throws Savage to the floor, and Hogan is not doing anything to help. So Akeem does it again with Liz getting in the way, and Hogan leads down to help her. Savage looks up and sees Hogan kneeling over her. And now he's questioning what's happening, but Akeem grabs him by the hair and brings him back in the ring. And for the beatdown, while Hogan picks up Liz in his arms and takes her to the back. So now he's carrying her, across his arms here like a damsel in distress. And Hogan is crying like he really is saying, please, God, please. And this is the overacting that we're talking about here. And he's walking her to the back. So after the commercial break, we see Savage crawling to his corner and Hogan's not there. And he's finally heading back to the ring. He put Liz in the trainer's room to get there. And here comes Hogan back out there. And we have this beatdown on Savage from the Twin Towers. And you again have to empathize with him here because he's getting beat down by the heels here. Twin Towers go for a double splash. Akeem slips to the ropes. And he falls headfirst to the floor. Savage does get out of the way. And to prove he doesn't need Hogan, he beats up both the towers. Then he goes over. He slaps Hogan in the face, walks out with his championship in hand. So we have the Twin Towers double teaming Hogan, ultimately fails. And Hogan is begging Savage to come back to the ring. And Savage is like, screw you, bro. I'm done. Savage throws out the peace sign. He walks out for good. Akeem splashes Hogan. But then we have Hogan overcome, which is interesting because you would think the heels would just get the win here. Hogan overcomes. He gets the win despite Randy leaving him high and dry. He hits the leg drop on Akeem for the 3 count. And after the match, Bossman is attacking and trying to handcuff Hogan with the nightstick. We find out Slick and Bossman end up being handcuffed to each other, which is a little bit campy here. And then Hogan heads to the back to kind of make things right with Savage. But just these sports entertainment pieces to this where everything has to work just perfectly, where you watch Liz take the fall and everyone has to be in their spot. And just the drama here where Randy is really playing his part really well. And Hogan, unbeknownst to him, even though he's a really shitty actor, is playing his part well because it seems like he's overacting for the dramatics of whatever reason. And if you watch even the seedlings being planted in this match, there's portions of this match where even prior to this, Hogan's not there for Randy. Hogan is not in his spot where he's supposed to be. He's being a bad teammate. Maybe it's miscommunication. Maybe it's an off night for Hogan. But Randy has a lot to be angry about, aside from him carrying his girl to the back and leaving him high and dry. There's a lot to be said here. And Randy gets painted in a bad light with the machine that is WWF. But if you really want to make the argument, like I said, Hogan is the bad guy here.
Yeah, no, I'm Alex Jones and with you. I'm full-blown tinfoil hat. Hogan's always been a heel, damn it. But this, you could like just the picture being painted of Hogan takes Elizabeth, leaves. Macho Man's, he's got his opportunity to tag out. He goes to look. Hogan's not there, man. Like you're really, really fucking with Macho Man's brain, and like guy's already paranoid as is. What do you expect him to do at this point? Like I'd be blowing up too.
So we lead to the back. Of course, the camera follows them. Hulk Hogan finally finds Savage with Liz. He's tending to her and he's making sure she's okay. And as Hogan walks in, Randy is pissed, man, and he's right in his face. He's red in the face. And Savage is settling it once and for all, and he says that Hogan is jealous of his belt and his women, and Hogan's trying to plead with him. He's like, no, I'm your friend, and Savage finally had enough of Hogan trying to plead, and he nails him in the face. What a shot, man. And then the chaos ensues with all the medical equipment falling over and the noise and just the environment is like the tongue depressors, and there's like other tools that hit the floor, and just, Liz climbs off the stretchers. Like all of a sudden she's fine.
Yeah.
She's checking on Hogan too. So, and then she gets tossed out. So Savage can hit Hogan again with the belt. If you notice, Liz also checks on Hogan. Like her first intuition was to check that Hulk was okay. So if you rewind the tape again, it's not paranoia. It's Macho has a lot to be skeptical about here.
No, and like they did it. Like they said, this for this being introductory 101 on how to bring dramatics into pro wrestling. This was done, especially in the 80s. This is beautifully well done, man. And you feel so sympathetic for Randy. And I don't know what people were feeling at the time, but even rewatching it, I'm like, man, they're doing Randy Savage wrong, man. You can't do that to our brother.
So we get good old Ed Leslie, aka Brutus Beefcake, coming in for the save, and he gets kicked by Randy Savage for just getting involved. And
rightfully so. Yeah.
So if you notice, he messes up and he nails the cameraman by accident. Like, so he's blocking the shot. and Savage leaves, but he makes it clear, like, I'm only leaving because I want to leave, not because you guys are telling me to leave. This was crazy. Just the tension here and just the overdramatics of Hogan throughout this. And like I said, the environment makes really the moment. Like this shot to me, every time, I mean, you can circle the outside of the ring segments. Like, I mean, some favorites, obviously Booker T and Austin in the grocery store. You have Mick Foley with Austin and Vince in the hospital bed with the bedpan that we covered here on Shot Nostalgia Season 3 for WWF 1998. This was one of those moments where it kind of expanded the universe. We're not used to seeing this part of the arena being shown, so you have to remember that as well. And it really kind of shows the interpersonal relationship outside of just these guys. I know they're still wearing their tights. They're all sweaty from the ring, and he's hitting with the title belt. This feels like real life drama that I'm sure, even though wrestling was thought to be scripted, maybe there's a subsect of fans that felt like, all right, we weren't supposed to see this. And that's what's blurring the line for some people.
No, this was the media scrum, but in the 80s. Like that. Macho Man's got his Mindies. He's pissed off. Everybody's turning on. Hulk Hogan can't run a goddamn Walmart. Beautifully done. Beautifully done. So
somehow they didn't end the show on that note. We lead into a match that has to follow this act. It's Ted DiBiase with Virgil taking on Hercules. So essentially, just to follow this up, DiBiase did purchase Hercules' contract for Bobby Heenan 6 months earlier to turn him into his personal assistant, and Hercules objected to this decision to set up the feud. Hercules beats up both DiBiase and Virgil from the start of this match. He gets some comeuppance, but of course we see some of the cheating going on because we see DiBiase being put in the torture rack. Joey Morelli goes over, loosens the chain out of the corner, and Virgil grabs Hercules tights to the floor, causing DiBiase to fall to his back. Hercules turns around. He tries to grab Virgil, and he gets rolled up by DiBiase for the 3 count. Hercules loses 7 minutes and 13 seconds to end the night. He throws a tantrum in the ring. He chases Virgil and DiBiase with his patented chain that usually runs around his neck. Match was okay. Hercules not known for his work rate. DiBiase, one of the best on the roster. We referenced that before. He was one of the guys in the title picture that changed the game as far as, all right, there's a guy who's a great wrestler going for the championship. Certainly in this match, it was hard to follow that act again. Like, it felt anticlimactic to go to the action in the ring, but I do like that they do end it on the Hogan segment, which we'll talk about in a second. But your thoughts on this match?
Oh, listen, it was exactly what it's so hard to follow. You know, the beautiful backstage fallout between Macho Man and Hogan, but they did a great job. I didn't think it was terrible. I really enjoyed it. I popped for Hercules, man. I don't remember a lot of Hercules' time, but hell of a physique, hell of a torture rack. Like, he's got a good look to him. It just sucks it didn't pan out well. But yeah, man, it was a good kind of, it was that breathable moment after all the madness that just we all witnessed. So well put in place, and I do love that they did circle back around to the Hulkster drama, brother.
So we do have Hogan. He's trying to get his wits about him, and the camera catches up with him for a comment, and he's just not with it. He's going crazy. He's roaming the halls looking for Randy. He gets in the rockers and the Hart Foundation's faces. So you see a young Bret Hart, like, I don't know where he is, bro. Yeah. And he's asking where Savage is. They have no clue. And, I don't know. It was cool to see, again, the Rocker, Shawn Michaels, and then also seeing Bret Hart. These are guys, pillars of the industry that they eventually will be the guys who grab the torch, and they happen to be here in the moment. They happen to be, plants in the arena. And Hogan has gone crazy here. He's trying to figure out what had gone wrong, and
Randy,
like a true gaslighting heel.
Yeah.
This dude he can't see his part and take some sort of accountability for his actions, because if you're any bit insightful and looking within, you have to realize your part in this, Terry. Yeah. Like, what are we doing, dude? Like, that's your friend that you did this
to. and of course, he's got to be leaving the arena with the upper hand of being the better guy. I was looking all over for you, Randy. I couldn't find you anywhere, brother. Like, what a scumbag.
And then he takes his title. And like, he takes the title with his title. I got an idea for a storyline, brother. So,
good shit, though. All around, like, this is possibly one of my favorite events we've covered in general. It's just it's short, sweet, but very, very. It was a sandwich with bread this thin, but meat this thick. It was beautiful.
And this is sort of mandatory watching for wrestling fans. If you want to know how storytelling's told, especially in the way WWE tells stories today and understand the mechanics of it and really what was pioneering this level of storytelling, it's this Hogan Savage feud. And this is, you can't understand the Hogan Savage feud without watching the segment play out in real time. You have to watch the tag match, watch it play out, because there's no way you'd understand it by just watching the WrestleMania 5 main event. You have to watch this in full and kind of see it play out in real time in front of your eyes.
Randy.
It's just even when he's taking her to the back, he's like, God, why God?
No, he's doing that. He's holding his hand. Oh, brother, man, what's going on there? Like, it's so not even over dramatic. It's just goofy looking. And now I'm full blown with you with fucking Hogan being this dastardly heel all the way back then. Fuck
you
this
can
guy.
make the argument too, like his poor acting, which he was trying to act well here, added to the appeal of this because it makes him look guilty by his behavior.
He deserves all the booze during Sting's retirement fucking fiasco. Way to kill your vibe.
This is well done. And like this, I guarantee if we were breaking this down in real time podcasting, people would be saying that they're planting seeds for Hogan to be the bad guy. And I'm sure there were interpretation pieces about who was the bad guy and who was in the right. Was Macho justifying what he was doing? And that is kind of the best part about the story, that wrestling continues to be a commentary on real life, where there isn't just this black and white. There's some gray here where even though Macho did the thing where he turned heel, quote unquote, there is some layers of, I'm sure people were sympathizing with what he did because they put themselves in his shoes. How would you react if this happened? And maybe he's not proud of his actions, but also it's not just what happened on that night. It's what built up to it all these nights prior. And again, Randy Savage is the heel by definition in this, but it's not cut and dry. And I also think that's what makes these characters so dynamic, because it's not as good versus bad. This is way more than that. Yeah, no,
that's the thing. When your storytelling has layers like a fancy ass cake, it really makes the whole overall picture so much better. And like you said, it's not cut and it's not cut. Here we go. This guy's the bad guy. This guy's good guy. So this guy's has bad guy tendencies, but deep down inside, he's a lover, man. He just wants to snap into Slim Jims and hang out with Elizabeth all day. And then you got Hogan, who's just like, I want it all, brother. So it's really, really great, man. I really think they absolutely fucking killed it. Like, it was just beautiful storytelling all the way around.
So they followed up with this a month later for Saturday night's main event number 20 from Hershey, Pennsylvania, Hersheypark Arena. They taped this on February 16th, 1989. It aired on March 11th, 1989. All of our champions are the same. So we lead into this event, and there's no interviews to kick off the show, but we get a video of how the Megapowers did explode. And right now, they really set the tone leading into the show, saying the hook is Elizabeth has to choose which side she will represent at WrestleMania 5. Will it be Hogan? Will it be Savage? And they make it clear you're going to find out tonight. So we have Vince McMahon and Jesse Ventura. And Jesse Ventura rocking a Yale sweatshirt. So just always making note of what Jesse's wearing during these shows. But
it's where he got all the brains. Like McMahon, let me tell you.
Exactly.
I didn't go to Yale, but I bought this Yale sweatshirt, and it makes me smarter just wearing it.
Then again, you can go to any campus and buy sweatshirts. I mean, it wasn't as easy then. Like, I can order a Yale sweatshirt right now and be rocking it. But Jesse Ventura is classic every single time. But
absolutely.
We lead into our opening match here. Brutus Beefcake taking on Rick Rude with Bobby Heenan. And the way this match is set up is Heenan wants Beefcake eliminated so he doesn't try to cut Rude's hair because Rude's image is essential. That's essentially what this feud's about.
It's a fair point. Very fair point.
You can make the argument, though, then why don't they just leave Brutus Beefcake alone? He was not going to cut your hair. It's not bothering him. So
he's a madman. He's on a spree with those shears, man. You never know what Brutus Barber Beefcake's going to do.
So Brutus Beefcake, there's no denying that this is the most over he's ever been. I think approaching from WrestleMania 5 to WrestleMania 6, this guy is getting these crazy organic reactions where people are popping huge for him. Everything he does in the ring is absolutely electric. Like, he's not doing much, and the crowd is absolutely eating it up. And this match ends in a DQ, and it's because of the stuff that goes on after the match kind of goes down here. And we get Andre showing up at ringside. Beefcake hits an inverted atomic drop, then charges into the corner and gets tossed out for Andre to choke him out while the ref is distracted. So you think he's going to get the loss, but out comes Jake Roberts. and the snake. We know how Andre reacts to the snake. He fainted last time we saw him with it. Rude nails Beefcake with the double axe from behind before Damien can be freed from the bag. And they headed to the ring, and Hebner calls for the bell. So Beefcake wins by DQ. I'm sorry, he hits the axe handle on Jake Roberts before he can get in the ring. And Roberts is getting beat down until Beefcake makes the save. And he's holding his own with Rick Rude, and then he's getting choked by Andre. And out comes, God damn it, Big John Studd for the save. So these guys are standing off, and we get two very tall guys. Big John Studd is obviously one of the tallest guys in wrestling history. Got that awesome LJN of him.
God
damn. And they stand off until Jake slides Damien in the ring, and Andre's out of the ring. And yeah, so that was crazy. I mean, I didn't expect to see Big John Studd here.
Yeah.
This layers the story with Jake and Andre, which is building towards WrestleMania 5. And also, again, Brutus Beefcake, again, at 5 minutes and 45 seconds. The guy is so over. Great dance partner here.
He's living
Rick
the best
Rude's
life
fantastic,
ever.
But goddamn, he is so over here.
Yeah, it's weird. But listen, it works. This was such a cluster mashup of all these different characters here. I mean, Jake Roberts, Andre, Beefcake, Rude, Big John Studd. It's insane, but it worked. It was good, man. I enjoyed the segment all the way around. I love Andre being afraid of the snake, like he's passing out and shit. Like super, super fucking good. And who doesn't like to see Jake Roberts out there doing his thing? I thought it was fun, man.
So we have the next match set up, and there's some interesting storyline being told here on commentary. Hulk Hogan with Miss Elizabeth in his corner taking on Bad News Brown. So what is being set up is Bad News has been spreading rumors about Liz, and Belcaster, you may be asking what these rumors are, and they're not PG, they're not family friendly. So Bad News has been saying that she has been doing, quote, favors for WWF President Jack Tunney for special treatment. And then Jesse responds to it by saying, I need you to say it. This is something I have long suspected.
This is something I have long suspected, McMahon.
With just a matter of fact, like this was like he knew this whole time. Like it makes complete sense for him.
I've seen her get in limousines with Jack Tunney many, many times, Vince.
Oh my God. So, and he makes the argument that Macho Man was only to get his shots because Liz was in his corner doing that. And she's being disparaged throughout the locker room, allegedly from these rumors by Bad News Brown. And we have Savage not defending her honor because he's gone completely haywire. He's not following through on anything, and he's kind of gone missing at this point. And Hogan takes it upon himself because he's the white knight in shining armor. He's like, I'll defend your honor. And now he has Liz in his corner, and it makes you think like, okay, well, it's obvious she's gonna be in his corner at Mania. And they make it clear in commentary, you have to wait and find out. She's just out there to kind of watch and be out there, even though she's playing her role, and you can make the argument her role and all this stuff as well. You're watching this though, and you kind of assume they kind of bury the lead here, and you assume that she's going to be in Hogan's corner, but it doesn't. It's not as clear cut as you'd imagine it would be. Yeah,
and I like that they keep it open like that. That is a good, very, very good work by the commentators. Listen, you got to wait and find out. It's not necessarily this is how it's going to be, but she went from cutting Jack Tunney's steak to cutting Hogan's in one night. I don't know how I feel about it.
So, dude, Bad News Brown is absolutely just killing in this match. He takes it to Hogan. He holds his own. And again, it kind of showcases what I was saying in the newsletter. They definitely perceived him as being one of the top heels. And they kept him very protected here, even to the point where he was no-selling a slam to the face. And, he beats himself with a chair several times in his own face. And Bad News is like he's all over the place, and I guess his gimmick is he's a madman, like the street fights and the stuff where he's absolutely out of control. He doesn't abide by any set of rules, and he eventually starts to chase Liz around the ring, and Hogan gets involved. Of course, you don't mess with his woman. He punches him in the face, and we do get a lot of other some good offense from Bad News here. I mean, he's beating the shit out of Hogan. I mean, the Russian leg sweep. He starts beating up Hogan again, and he grabs the mic, too, to start degrading Hogan. And he says, you think I'm going to give you some mercy? No way. It's Ghetto Blaster time. So he comes off the ropes for the Ghetto Blaster. We know that's the running enziguri move. Hogan ducks out of the way. We get Hogan hulking up. He connects with the running knee to set up the leg drop for the win. So, really, if you look at this match, Bad News beat him down for probably 7 minutes of just absolute beatdown. Had him under control this whole time. Hogan hits 2 moves, and it's over. So the real other stuff going on was Hogan and Liz celebrating after the match where they're doing the cups to the ears. They're posing together. but the announcers are really selling it. Will she be in Hogan's corner? She has not made her decision yet. I pulled away from this match. Bad News Brown was awesome, and I think it would have been cool to see him in a bigger spot that with a little more emphasis, because again, nobody got this amount of offense on Hogan. I understand Hogan went over, Hogan must pose, all that stuff. He had 2 moves. This match was dominant. You very rarely see outside the Earthquake feud, outside of Andre beating him up, nobody really had that amount of offense in sequential order like Bad News had in this match. Go back and watch it. He beat the shit out of him.
No, 100%. Like Hogan must have owed Bad News Brown some money or something. Like going into it, he's just like, brother, just take it off my tab, man. But it looked great, man. I was not expecting to see so much out of Bad News Brown. I was jacked up after this. Like, hell yeah, this guy's great, and like, you know, he would fit the mold anywhere. You could throw him in a fucking Falls Count Anywhere match with Cactus Jack, and it would probably be one of the greatest things you've ever seen. So it good stuff, man. Really, really enjoyed it. Love the pageantry from Hogan and Elizabeth afterwards. Really selling that, you know, she's picked her man, and Hogan's picked his woman. Like it feels like they're bonded together now, and it's crazy.
So, I mean, he is the guy he's top guy at Stampede Wrestling. So, I mean, he trained at Stu Hart's Stampede Wrestling, and, you know, he lived in his adopted home of Calgary for a long period of time, and he had matches with wrestlers like Dynamite Kid and Bret Hart, and he absolutely just was that guy. Like, he was a legit tough guy. I believe he has a judo background. Like, he competed in 1976 gold medal. He competed for the bronze medal at the Olympic Games in judo, and he also competed in the Pan American Games, and this dude was the legit tough guy. And that's also the layer here where you feel that dripping off of him. Like, his judo career in wrestling, I understand MMA became the in vogue thing for people to transition, but the martial arts capacity of guys that have this real life believability of their stance and the way they sell strikes and all that stuff, that you could tell Bad News had this background that made him stand out. And it's kind of a shame he didn't get pushed in that way. And I'm going to do a little bit of research as far as why. Of course, unfortunately, he didn't really, pay off the same way. I mean, his actual, confrontation with Andre the Giant may have been his undoing. Like you hear this story because I think Dynamite Kid wrote in an autobiography about the situation with Bad News and Andre. I think Andre had said something that made Bad News upset, and I don't know. That could have been something that went down. And
Bad News Brown will go bite Andre's nose. Like
an issue with Vince McMahon that living up to the promise to make him the first black champion, and he felt like he was kind of sold a bag of goods. And I don't know. I mean, there's something to be said about missed opportunity with Bad News Brown. I know people kind of get stuck in this in the moment, but I don't think he gets the credit he deserves. And he was a short-lived heel here, but this guy could have been one of the biggest stars in wrestling.
Yeah, absolutely. He was great, man. Really enjoyed it.
So we lead into the match here that we're looking forward to is the Brainbusters, Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard with Bobby Heenan. I'm sorry. We jumped a little bit ahead here. So we get Randy Savage pacing around in Liz's locker room, and we know she's in the ring. So this dude is in the back waiting for her, and she's in the ring doing the posing, stereo posing with Hogan. And they cut away. We're going to get some drama here, of course, where Liz has to make her decision. But we get Ted DiBiase with Virgil taking on the Blue Blazer here. Love Owen Hart. I'll let you take the debut here. We get the debut of the infamous $1 Million belt in the pre-match interview. And
what a beautiful belt.
The story behind this, and I didn't realize that this is how it's tied. I thought it was just kind of coincidence that he had the title after the WWF Championship, but it was directly tied with it that he created his own championship because he couldn't buy or win it. And it made the most sense. Something clicked in my brain.
Yeah, no, it's super crazy. This match was short but sweet. It really was. I enjoy seeing Ted DiBiase and the Blue Blazer in the ring together, man. It's so weird watching Blue Blazer 10 years before we get, Owen Hart Blue Blazer in the Attitude Era, but it's so fun, man. And it not any different of in-ring work. You're getting some good quality shit there, a lot of back and forth. You get Blazer hit a beautiful, beautiful suicide dive. Absolutely insane for it being fucking 1989, but doesn't fall for the win. Obviously, we get Ted DiBiase picking that W up. Short, like I said, short but sweet. 4-minute match almost. Super, super great. But we got the $1 Million title. in all of its glory. Looked beautiful. We got Blue Blazer. We got the $1 Million Man and some meat sauce with Virgil. It was some entertaining shit.
Dude, Owen Hart, and we were talking about him a couple newsletters ago. He was recognized in the newsletter, at least from the Calgary area, as one of the best workers in the world. I think he named him like number 3 in all of the world. The fact that he's here and they don him under the mask, make him do the Blue Blazer thing, doesn't stop him from absolutely stealing the show, doing shit that people really have never seen before. And I think the WWF audience maybe wasn't ready for it. It was almost like Marty McFly playing oh, your parents are gonna love this. Playing the music that catch everybody by shock. But like, he flips out of the backdrop and then drop kicks DiBiase to the floor. And as you mentioned, the suicide dive in 1989, that people were like in shock that he did this. The flying crossbody, the stuff that he's able to do, it's just like he's a time traveler, and the fans are just absolutely wowed by him. And as far as matches that are 4 minutes long, I dare you to find a better match that was better than this one in 4 minutes. 4 minutes. They fit so much shit in this match, and two of the best to ever do it, Owen Hart and Ted DiBiase, was fantastic.
Yeah, this match was packed better than my lunches when I was a kid. This was fantastic. But watching this match, it felt very reminiscent of like a 93, 94 WWF. A lot of fast, you know what I mean? Like, you got Owen doing shit you'd see 1, 2, 3 Kid do it, or, you know, like it really showed. I mean, even Shawn Michaels, the list goes on and on. Owen going out there doing mind-blowing stuff for it being 1989, and a lot of people probably haven't seen a lot of that work, especially if you're just a WWF fan at the time. So it's fucking awesome to see him out there doing the shit, man. Great.
So we get the decision time for Elizabeth, and she gets on the mic and she says, "This is tough. I didn't want to have to choose, you know, that sort of thing." And she answers no when she asks if she'll be in Hogan's corner. So there's cheers at first and boos drown them out. So people are like assuming she says no about Hogan. That means she's going to be in Savage's corner. She makes it clear that she won't be in his corner either. And they're both looking at each other like, what are we talking about? And Savage gets in her face until Hogan arrives, and he starts, you know, talking some shit to Macho Man. And she's going to be neutral. In other words, she's going to wait to whoever wins, and she's going to walk out with the champion.
Devil woman.
So, I mean, again, maybe the real heel all this time was Elizabeth. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, she's doing crazy things to both men, man. So I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it yet. I'm still up in the air.
So we lead into the match that we were so eager to talk about before, and Meltzer said to set your VHS for this because it's the Brainbusters, Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard, Bobby Heenan taking on the Rockers, Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty. And this is just absolutely epic. This is what you turn on the TV for. This is my type of wrestling. And Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson, I know their run in WWF was short-lived, but for the time period they're here, it's almost surreal seeing both these guys lace it up and take on a team like Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty. This match was absolutely awesome. I'll let you take us through some of the spots here, but I had a great time watching this, and long live the Brainbusters. They're absolutely epic.
Yeah, man, both teams got a lot of good back and forth in there. I mean, from Michaels trying to hit the Boston Crab to, you know, your typical antics from Arn and Tully. I fucking love it so much, man. It's crazy to go back and see like all 4 guys in the ring together. Really, like, mind-blowing. This young Marty Jannetty, young Shawn Michaels with not so young. I'm not saying they're old yet, but I mean, Arn had totally been around the block a couple times before 1989, but this was great, man. You get your typical, you know, Arn Anderson antics. It was just seeing him go against Jannetty and Michaels, man. It was I haven't watched it enough. I want to go back and watch it more. Like, it was great, man. Really enjoyed the tag match.
So we're going to see some of their feud continue throughout this, and we're going to have some famous moments here. And unfortunately for everybody, Tully Blanchard winds up failing a drug test on the eve of Survivor Series 1989, which they wanted to include them, but they couldn't justify it, especially with everything going on in the company and the lack of suitable replacement. They were replaced by Heenan, who would wrestle for the first time since WrestleMania 5 in that match. And Arn Anderson left WWF more or less immediately after pay-per-view, and then he returned to NWA in December. So all told, 1988 to 1989 is their time here, but they really maximized their time with the feud with, I mean, they appeared at WrestleMania 5 as their only WrestleMania appearance, where they took on the Strike Force. And after the WrestleMania win, they got to face Demolition and defeated them by DQ. We're going to talk about that coming up next week. And then they wind up taking on the Hart Foundation at SummerSlam, and they are the ones that ended Demolition's run too as tag champs. So a lot in one year. They recognize the greatness of them, and who knows if Tully Blanchard didn't fail the test, would Arn Anderson would have stayed? Who knows? It's kind of a butterfly effect thing, but really they belonged in NWA. Like it wouldn't be the same if Arn Anderson wasn't in NWA going forward. And a guy like Tully, he's a guy that is underrated. I really appreciate that AWA appearances that he used to have. And then AEW took the time to really put some esteem back into who he is, because him being with FTR for the longest period of time helped people bring back what he used to do. And I mean, he was even active as an older guy wrestling in the ring.
Oh, 100%. It's cool. Listen, it's watching the Brain Busters in WWF is like McDonald's, selling the Whopper for 6 months. It goes back to Burger King. Like it was beautifully done, though. I mean, they were great, and it's a shame that we didn't get more of it. But also, like you said, they belong in NWA. They belong in WCW with Dusty, baby. They needed to be there, so it was good. But this match was fantastic. Absolute clinic for tag team wrestling.
So I'm going to correct myself. He was in Southwest Championship Wrestling, and then he went to NWA, so not AWA, but still, I mean, his lineage was territorial, like that style of wrestling, where he was an outlier in WWF at the time, and that's what made him stand out to me. And this feud with the Rockers and the matches with Demolition and the matches with, obviously the Hart Foundation makes you look back. This is like kind of a highlight of tag team wrestling, a moment in time, if you will, just passing us by, but this is cool to live it in real time here.
Yeah, beautifully done.
So our main event here, which we kind of close the show, is our good friend the Red Rooster taking on the Brooklyn Brawler. Match barely goes over a minute, and Bobby Heenan gets rid of Rooster, but now he's managing the Brooklyn Brawler to further embarrass Rooster by managing a bum to beat him. Unfortunately for him, he winds up losing, so the Red Rooster gets the win here. And even really new WWE fans know that, Brooklyn Brawler is Steve Lombardi. He was featured pretty heavily as far as like on screen for reunion shows and stuff.
Still comes out an occasional Rumble with a garbage can.
Exactly. So Rooster winds up getting the quick comeback and an inside cradle. So Minute goes for this match here. This was not great. And I mean, this is what they do here. And I understand, like we talk about it over and over again. They finish up with some shitty match. You might as well just not have a match here. I just don't understand.
No, you could have done a backstage segment that lasted longer and got more miles out of it. But whatever. Storytelling. They got to do it somewhere. And God bless the Red Rooster.
So we end the show here at Mean Gene trying to get a response from Randy Savage. And Randy doesn't answer him. He just turns over his locker and he's showing his frustration. So Macho Man's completely lost it. As far as wrestling wise, man, it's hard to dismiss. This is one of the stronger events. I mean, you look at that Brainbusters match, the Blue Blazer DiBiase match, Hogan Bad News Brown, which was good, and also Beefcake in the ring with Rick Rude. Like, I don't know. I mean, hard press, and I mean, we haven't seen it yet, but maybe we'll see it in the later editions of this as we go through the 36 episodes of Saturday Night's Main Event. And this was 4 pretty solid matches that we have not seen back to back to back in some time.
No, this was a stacked show. Probably one of the best we've seen. So it was a pleasure watching it, and it was a pleasure calling it with you, brother.
Well, let's get to the chaser. We'll pick our favorite part of these 3 episodes, and we're going to pick what we thought was the most memorable or thing that was going to stick out to us. Let's get to the chaser.
The chaser.
Woo!
All right, here we are picking our favorite part of these 3 episodes. And I have to say, man, I would have expected us to probably pick the same thing, but there are some outside circumstances that may make us pick something different. Go with.
Yeah, listen, man, there's so much involved here. There's so much good stuff. The Brainbusters was so amazing against the Rockers, but you cannot pass by the Megapowers dramatics, the blow up, the fallout. Oh my goodness, done so well. It could have been on a General Hospital or When the World Turns. It was just poetic storytelling done in the form of pro wrestling, and I loved every minute of it. And even following the aftermath, like Liz picking Macho Man or Hogan for WrestleMania, beautifully done. So well done. So round of applause to every party involved. And Hulk Hogan's a scumbag.
So I have to agree with you. I mean, as far as longevity and importance in the grand scheme of wrestling, there's nothing that stands above this. This is one of the more important moments that we're going to review. I think when we looked at the Saturday night's main event and the main event catalog, we circled real two events here, and it was Andre versus Hogan on the main event number 1, and also Macho and Hogan exploding on the main event number 2. And these are huge moments that stand the test of time. I mean, it's included in our video package here. People reference this even throughout. This is the most well-told story in WWE company history. So seeing it play out in real time, when we first saw this being unveiled in front of us, there was I don't know, maybe a sliver of doubt on my end that it was going to live up, that we're going to be like, okay, maybe there was some nostalgia here that was blinding some fans. But as we saw this play out in real time, what makes it even better, as we referenced before, was the room for just debate on who was in the right. And I think that's also what we continue to discuss here. And I think that's what makes it interesting, because it's not like Macho Man wasn't justified. You can make the argument. And that's what makes it so intriguing to discuss, because it isn't just a bad guy doing bad things. This is a human being, a superhuman being. I mean, he is a superhero-like person. So is Hogan. But they're letting their feelings be sort of put on Front Street. And like you said, it's like a daytime drama watching this come unfold, paired with the storytelling of the wrestling matches, and you get to see them lock up in the ring. There's no way that this is not going to captivate all those 20,000 people at the Trump Plaza. And, you know, and this was a hot ticket, and you can see why they're telling stories. This is when you watch when the business is hot and it's driven by the top stories. Look at the Bloodline now. That's what's driving things. Yeah. The company is relying on that. Now we're watching the Judgment Day story continue to be told. This interwoven story that builds the characters on top of it. Pointing cases here. This is the main story that kind of goes through the whole show. You have the match, and of course, the match itself is important, but the backstage segments, the interviews, the other things that go into the story make it all fit together like a beautiful puzzle.
No, it couldn't have said it better myself. It was just so well done, man. I absolutely love it.
So let's close the tab. It's getting late here on a Friday. Let's get our weekend started, and let's preview what's coming up next week on the Tavern, and also get some shilling in. Let's close the tab.
Closing the tab.
All right. As the lights come out the bar, we have Elizabeth trying to pick sides, but she's picking nobody. She's going home with the person who won the 50-50 raffle, and that's it. So if you thought you were going home with Liz, you're wrong. So
you thought that wrong, brother.
Belcaster, next week we're going to be doing episode 11, believe it or not, of this season. We're flying through this. Going to be this is the last one of October as we get ready for Halloween, and
crazy.
Episode 11 of season 5 will air on November 3rd, 2023. We're going to be reviewing 2 events: Saturday night's main event 23 on May 27th, 1989, and also Saturday night's main event 24 on July 29th, 1989. So all good stuff here. We're going to be covering all the things in the catalog of Saturday night's main event, of course, covering the newsletter, all that stuff. But we have a couple minutes here. Let's do some shilling. We got Halloween coming up. You guys, obviously, that's a very important, very memorable holiday in the Belcaster family. What do you guys got going on?
Yeah, no, we're obviously taking the kids out, got some trick-or-treating going on. They're all getting older, so it's not just them anymore. They got to bring their friends with, their parents, everybody. So it's going to be kind of like a train running through, the suburbs of Chicago for Halloween this year. So it's going to be a good time.
Strutting like the Red Rooster down the street. And you guys, make sure you guys check out all the shows here on the Turnbuckle Tavern. You guys got Fig Night coming up next week. Yeah. You guys just had a great episode. You did an unboxing this past week. Right?
I busted open this badass, brand new, the Ocho Chris Jericho, done by our good friends over at Jazzwares. And of course, you can't have a great unboxing without Eddie Kingston, brother. He looks so goddamn good with the hat, the chain, beautiful stuff. So make sure, if you missed out on that, go throw my mug up there. It's a short episode. You can watch me play with my toys for a few. Always a good time.
Yeah, and you guys can go to theturnbuckletavern.com for all your tavern needs. There's all this good stuff there. Of course, on Instagram, that's where the predominant stuff is posted. Here, of course, the Two Bad Chads running the Twitter machine. also on Instagram as well. So there's some great stuff being posted on social media. You guys can pick up pro wrestling tees. You got some great shirts, Spotify, Apple, wherever you find audio. Leave a review. That really helps the algorithm, helps us get noticed. And if you like the show, please let us know. Give us some feedback here. If you like what we're doing here, we like to interact with you guys. And I think,
100%.
Use for an example, I was just talking about this with Chad the other day. The way Colton started podding with us was because he called in to the flagship, and here he is. He hosts a show. He's on this show sometimes, but he's also on Brace for Impact on me, 10 p.m. on Thursdays. And that's how he got involved. So not saying everyone's going to get involved in the Tavern, but who knows? You don't know. Call in.
Always a pleasure. Always. Absolutely. If we can get more people like Colton on, shit, man, I'll take Colton to dinner. So bring him in.
So I think he's going to be on coming up. He's definitely slotted to come on some of these other episodes. So we do have the layout for him. There's always a seat warm from here at Saturday Night's Main Event Shot Nostalgia, and he might be joining us down the line for future episodes. And we're also going to be, as you know, taking a hiatus after this season. So enjoy it. We're going to be releasing WCW Season 1 for audio on the Saturday drop. So you're still going to get your Shot Nostalgia fix on the audio platforms. So you're going to be making sure you guys check that out. But we're going to be returning with full steam, well rested, talking about the NXT takeovers. The episode's
super
great.
Excited.
We may be taping those probably, like we said, we're going to be airing those in July of 2024. So there's a lot of content to catch up on if you missed some of the episodes here. But there will be an opportunity for us to record in bulk. Maybe we'll be able to do some in the hiatus and like store them and be able to kind of, it is a lot of pressure to do the research here. And, we're approaching 100 episodes here, Belcaster. And this has been what an amazing ride doing this. I mean, this is season 5. And who would have thought, like when we first had this brainchild of creating these, these episodes of just wanting to review old wrestling and all that goes into it. Cause I think there's much more than this, just enjoying like the matches. And there's a place for that in wrestling podcasting, but I think we definitely bring a different layer to it that I don't know. It's been educational for me doing the research.
Absolutely.
I'm sure it is for you.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I you know what? I'm super stoked that everybody's going to have an opportunity to check out one of the best seasons, our first season. Shot of Nostalgia, WCW 96. What a year of pro wrestling it was. And we go through every little bit of it, from the triple cage of god-awful horror to the birth of the NWO, man. And it's probably still, looking back, one of my favorite seasons we've done. I mean, we get the birth of Crow Sting. We got so much going on there. And if you guys missed out on it, this is a perfect opportunity for you to hear all the audio goodness of our very first season of Shot of Nostalgia, what brought us to the dance here. So guys, make sure you tune in, enjoy the shit out of it, because I know I did. I know you did, Ace. I can't wait to hear the feedback of it.
And of course, and people have been asking about it. So we're doing this for a reason. It gives us a chance to catch our breath and really reconvene for the next season, because we were running week after week doing these nostalgia, and there's a lot of research that goes into it to make sure that we're watching these episodes and making sure we give you guys the best content that's as well informed as we can possibly give it to you. Also want to hype up as we're doing this. I mean, it's too late for you guys to be there, but I'm there in the building right now, ring announcing for the Halloween Haunted Havoc show, Remarkable Wrestling, this concert. So if you were listening to this live and you didn't make it, make sure you guys check it out on IWTV when it does air. So check it out on demand. Use code Remarkable. When you sign up, you'll save 10% on your subscription on IWTV. Also want to thank Rad Pro Wrestling and all the fans that showed up at Amesbury, Massachusetts for Power Transfer. Looking forward to showing up for December 2nd in the same building, Lafayette Club in Amesbury, Massachusetts, for, first of all, the crowning of the inaugural Rad Pro Wrestling heavyweight champion. We're going to have Colt Cabana in the building. So we'll be taking on Roberta Gingersnap, a.k.a. Little Mean Kathleen. And we're going to be, again, crowning the first ever champion. The 2 semifinal matches are announced. It's on their Instagram. You guys can pick up tickets for Forever Rad 94, December 2nd, 3:30 doors, 4 o'clock bell time. So make sure you guys check it out. All these events happen for Remarkable Wrestling. You guys can check out at Remarkable_Wrestling for all the events coming up. I'll be ring announcing those, as I mentioned, doing the Halloween show as we talk about this. But there's also the November show, Dream Sequence, coming up, where the Motor City Machine Guns are coming back, and they're taking on Above the Rest, Gabe Sky, and also Tristan Ty, and also Miracle Generation, Dustin Waller and Kylon King for the tag titles. Goddamn, dude, there's a lot on the docket here. Been a busy dude. All the ring announcing, all the stuff.
Love it.
I appreciate all the support and the love.
Hell yeah. Not another brother out there killing it like you are, dude.
I appreciate it. And again, you guys check out all the other shows here on the Tavern. Wrestling Tonight dropping on Monday nights. Thursday, Brace for Impact. Here, Shot Nostalgia Friday. But also we got Thursdays, Raw Down. We got Thursday mornings. We got the Flagship. We got Fig Night coming up as well, of course, every week. What else did we miss? We got the debate Sunday night and also drops Monday morning. Dude, we have shows coming out everywhere, and it's just a matter of time before we add another show. Just wait.
Because it happens all the time. Like, the second we subtract something, we add 2 more. So that's how it works out best, man. But always a fun time. Make sure you guys are supporting the Tavern. Check out all of the stuff. Go give our videos some likes. Even if you're not watching the whole thing, go give it a couple minutes to watch. Give us a thumbs up. Give us a high five, a comment somewhere. We love it, man. We appreciate you guys for appreciating us, and that's why we do it, because we're wrestling fans just like everybody else in the world, but we enjoy sitting here and chilling out our shit for hours on hours every week. We do it for you guys, so thank you guys for tuning in and enjoying it.
Well, like Terry Taylor, we have to strut on out of here. So Jesse Ventura, lead us out, my friend, and tell everyone what they can do this weekend.
Well, cock-a-doodle-doo to you. Let me tell you, Red Rooster. Terry, I don't even think I can top that.